Recording. And welcome to the Columbus GreenSpot Conversations, which is a webinar series created by our GreenSpot Advisory Board. It delves into different aspects of sustainability in our community. And we're planning on more than 20 of these. That's right, more than 20. So we're going to be busy this year. And you can get the latest of when the next one is, what they're going to be about, by following us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter, or you could become a member if you're not already a GreenSpot member. Go to columbusgreenspot.org. You can sign up there. And our members get advance notice of these before the general public, so they get to register beforehand, and we do have a limited amount of space for them. If you have questions, please type them into the chat, and we'll do our best to get to them at the end. You can change the view of how you're seeing this of the panel by clicking on the top right button that says display. Now this, I think, is only for certain computers or certain operating systems, so you might not have that, but you can kind of change the layout of how you're seeing this. It is going to be recorded, however, in one format. So now that we have those out of the way, let's jump into today's topic, which is recycling, landfill, and Columbus's residential program. Keep in mind that the focus of this webinar is on recycling and those topics. Now, it's not on reducing or reusing. We've had webinars in the past on those, and we are going to have webinars in the future on those. But for this one, it's specifically towards recycling. Our first presenter is Amy Densborn, and Amy is with the Solid Waste Authority of Central Ohio, also known as SWACO. She is the education specialist and is responsible for educating community members about the importance of waste reduction, reuse, recycling, and safe disposal at the Franklin County Sanitary Landfill. Her passion for protecting the environment was spurred by her love for the outdoors and a desire to protect Mother Earth for future generations. Amy has a background in wildlife biology and environmental science. Apart from talking about trash, which she could talk trash like nobody's business, Amy enjoys growing her own food, reading, and camping with her family. And Amy, I'm sure you haven't heard anybody say that joke before. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy. So give me half a second here. Okay, Amy, you should be unmuted. So we got that taken care of. And then we will pull up your presentation. And just let me know when you want to advance slides, and I'm going to mute myself.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Dave, for the introduction and the invitation. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I did briefly want to mention a little bit more about who we are as an organization at SWACO, for those of you who haven't heard about us before. So SWACO manages the waste stream for all of Central Ohio, and we strive to be the leader in environmental sustainability by offering a range of diversion programming and services related to recycling household materials, recycling e-waste and household hazardous waste, yard waste, and other diversion programs related to food waste diversion and composting, hosting landfill tour sessions and educational programming, and then offering community grants to reduce the waste and recycle more. So this isn't a full list of all the services offered. I just wanted to briefly provide you with a snapshot of what we do at SWACO. If you're interested in learning more, I encourage you to check out swaco.org. Go ahead and advance, Dave. So the good news is in our community, we're doing a really outstanding job at diverting waste. In Franklin County, our diversion rate is right at 50%. So that means 50% of all the waste that we generate as a community, residents and businesses, we are diverting that through reuse, recycling, or composting. And that's really encouraging considering the national average is right around 34%. So we're doing an outstanding job, but there's always room for improvement. Next slide, please. So as a community, we send over 1 million tons of materials to the Franklin County Sanitary Landfill every year. Does that number surprise you? Next slide. From a recent waste characterization study, which tells us the types of materials people are throwing away in their trash cans, the results showed that we're throwing away a lot of materials that could have been recovered through recycling or composting instead. In fact, 76% of the materials in the landfill, they don't belong there. This includes materials such as food scraps, recyclable items like cardboard and plastic bottles and jugs, and other recoverable materials that had the potential to be reused. You may even be surprised to see that food waste and cardboard are the top two contributors by percentage in the landfill. So food waste comes in at about 15% of the total stream. Cardboard makes up 10% of the total waste stream. So we have an amazing opportunity to increase recovery of these materials through increased access and education. You are in an important position to make a measurable difference and help lead our community towards a more sustainable future. SWACO has set a goal of helping Franklin County reach a 75% diversion rate by 2032. But we can't do it alone. We need everyone's help. So we need your help to spread the word about the importance of diverting waste and turning it into a resource that benefits the community and the economy. So the moment you've all been waiting for, what can we put in our recycling bin? And what can you do to help make sure that your efforts can go on to make a big difference? So by recycling right, you're doing your part to protect the planet. Everything that you see on the left-hand side of this slide is accepted for single stream or mixed recycling in Franklin County. So you can see paper and cardboard. That includes your junk mail and your toilet paper and paper towel rolls, plastic bottles, jugs, and now tubs, which I'll explain more about that in a few minutes. Glass bottles and jars, all colors are accepted. Metal cans, this even includes your aerosol cans. Please remove the tip. Carton containers, so a carton container that might have juice or milk in it, make sure to remove caps and straws. And then when you place your items in the recycling bin, or if you take them to a SWACO drop-off location, you want to keep all your recyclables loose. Please don't place them in plastic bags. So you may have noticed plastic bottles, jugs, and tubs are on this list, but other types of plastics like plastic cups, clamshell containers, polystyrene, or more commonly known as styrofoam, and plastic bags are not. They are actually on the right-hand side and are not accepted. So these are some of the most commonly recycled items in our community that people think are accepted for recycling. When we place the wrong items in the recycling bin, they just end up taking a long detour to the landfill. So what is the deal with plastics? Many of you probably have heard the great news that our partners at Rumpke Waste and Recycling, they recently expanded the plastic category to include plastic tubs. So I want you to understand who's making that decision. It's not SWACO making the decision, it is Rumpke. They are a private business and they are in charge of processing our recyclables for Franklin County. They base their decisions on a number of factors, but to put it simply, they must have a buyer or end user for that material. So recently, there were some innovations in the recycling industry that allowed Rumpke to secure a long-term buyer for those types of plastics that are used to make plastic tubs. So that is called polypropylene or plastic resin number 5. So securing these long-term partners or end users is a vital part of Rumpke's operation. So this program change applies to you regardless. Dave, would you mind going back? This is a long slide. This program applies to you regardless if you have Rumpke as your hauler. So if you have access to curbside recycling in Franklin County, your materials are picked up by, they could be picked up by local waste, they could be picked up by, I'm forgetting the other names of the companies, but City of Columbus, which we'll hear more about here shortly. This information still applies to you because those materials go to the same place to be processed. That's Rumpke's material recovery facility in Columbus. All the materials get processed in the same way. So this information still applies to you. So this is going to be on the list of acceptable plastics are going to be sour cream, cottage cheese, butter, whipped topping, yogurt, fruit, and pudding containers. Just like with all the other recyclables, we want to try to make them clean, empty, and dry. So give them a quick rinse, make sure there's no residue left in them, reattach the lids, just like you do with your bottles and jugs. We can also recycle the lids on the tubs. The only caveat to that is if it's a plastic film lid or if it's a foil lid like on a yogurt or pudding cup, you would want to discard that in the trash. And then as new technologies become available, more end markets become available for these plastics. Rumpke has told us that they will continue to expand that down the road. They want to start off slow with a number of plastic tubs, but they're hopeful down the road they will be able to expand the list of tubs that they accept. Just really exciting news. Next slide, Dave. So this isn't an exhaustive list of all plastic tubs. So these are some of the commonly asked questions that we've received since this this expansion started at the beginning of January of 2021. So these are some of your common tubs that would not be accepted. So this is going to include takeout food containers, clamshells, meat containers, coffee pods, cups, all types of cups. So solo cups, fast food cups, Starbucks, your favorite Starbucks drink, prescription medicine bottles, over-the-counter medicine bottles, and then nursery containers. Those are all not accepted currently in Rumpke's program. So your efforts to recycle right reduce our reliance on the landfill in addition to contributing to a cleaner environment. Creating goods from recycled content saves energy because it prevents the mining, the transportation, and the processing of virgin materials to make that new item. Buying recycled products is an important step in completing the life cycle of recycled items, and this closes the loop on the recycling process. What happens when we can't recycle our materials or reuse them? As you're probably already aware, they end up going to a landfill for final disposal. Next slide. So SWACO owns and operates the landfill, the Franklin County Sanitary Landfill. It's located in Grove City off of 71 South, and we have a really unique perspective into the waste stream because we own and operate it. This landfill accepts all municipal solid waste, which is everyday waste that's created by the public. There are 30 other solid waste landfills in Ohio. There are over 2,000 landfills in the United States, just to give you a little bit of an idea of how the rest of the country sits. So we view the landfill as an asset to the community, and we want it to last as long as it possibly can. And to extend the life of the landfill, SWACO continues to develop new diversion services and programming. So through its public ownership and management, we're able to keep hauling costs low for our partners, reduce wear and tear on local infrastructure like our roads, and reduce emissions by cutting the distance waste has to be hauled. We're also committed to ensuring that any future value that is extracted from the landfill is returned to the residents of Franklin County for their benefit. So there's a high level of engineering that goes into constructing and building a sanitary landfill, and I'm going to just give you a very high level overview. If you are interested in learning more about the construction and the engineering and the daily operations of the landfill, I encourage you to watch our virtual video tour of the Franklin County Sanitary Landfill. It's 11 minutes. It really provides a quick overview of everything that goes on at the landfill. It's on our website at swaco.org. So here on this graphic, this is a graphic of a new cell. So this is an area that materials are landfilled in. So landfills are designed in smaller stages called cells, and there are many liners that have to be placed at the bottom and the sides of a cell before materials can be placed in that area. And this is to ensure that no materials, no debris, and no liquid can pass through those liners and go down into the soil and contaminate the groundwater below. So there's these, when rainwater mixes with the garbage, it creates a chemical substance called leachate. At the bottom of every cell, we have leachate collection pipes. So those are going to be those grayish white pipes that you see on the bottom of the cell. They have holes in them that collect all of the leachate and send it through underground pipes to be cleaned up at the wastewater treatment plant. So that leachate doesn't go down into the soil and contaminate the groundwater. And then, as I mentioned before, 76% of the materials that we do receive had the potential to be reused, recycled, or composted. And you can see some of those materials firsthand in the video. And then one day when we're doing landfill tours again, and you want to come visit the landfill in person, you get to see the types of materials that people throw away in their trash. Next slide. So once the cell is closed and capped, it is completely encapsulated with clay and plastic liners. At this point, the trash is entombed and it's an anaerobic environment. An anaerobic environment takes over. Since the trash doesn't have access to oxygen and moisture, lack of that makes an anaerobic environment. The rate of decomposition is greatly slowed, and the byproduct from that decomposition process is methane gas. Gas production will continue for many years after the landfill is closed and capped. The old landfill in Franklin County, that's right next to the wastewater treatment plant off of Jackson Pike, that landfill was closed in 1986, and it's still producing methane gas today, which we're still monitoring and capturing. So landfills across the United States are all required by law to closely monitor their landfill for 30 years post-closure. As already mentioned, we're still monitoring the old landfill, which was closed roughly 34 years ago. Next slide. And then real quick, for those of you who are interested in learning about other types of landfills, we have a construction and demolition landfill, or C&D for short. So this, just as the name would imply, this waste that goes to a construction demolition, it's really from construction sites. So they are regulated differently compared to a municipal solid waste facility and aren't permitted to accept solid waste generated from the public. C&D landfills, they're still monitored and regulated by the Ohio EPA, and sometimes C&D debris will even be recycled. So for example, hard fill, such as concrete, bricks, tiles, or stone, that can be recycled and reused again, as long as that material is free of solid waste and other debris. So we do have 2 C&D landfills here in Franklin County, and there are over 40 C&D landfills in the state of Ohio. And that's my time for today. Thanks for your attention, and I'll turn it back over to Dave.
Great, thanks, Amy. There is a lot of information, and I appreciate you being very concise with it. So if folks have questions, go ahead and write that in the chat. We're going to get to that at the end out of respect of our next speaker. So our next speaker, and actually let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm thinking about it. Let's see. This is all, technology, right? You'd think I would learn how to do this stuff after doing it for about a year. Let's go ahead and do this. And a second. All right. So our next speaker is TJ Black, and TJ is an Ohio State graduate with a major in accounting. He has been employed with the City of Columbus for over 26 years. During that time, he has worked as a district assistant manager for the Division of Refuse Collection and a management analyst too for the Department of Public Service and Refuse Collection. TJ has been involved with the residential recycling program, starting with the deployment of the recycling containers back in 2012 and 2013 to approximately 205,000 residents. He is the operational contact with the city's recycling contractor, Rumpke of Ohio. So TJ, let's see, I think I just unmuted you, so you should be good to go.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, hello. It's nice to be with you, and thank you for sharing some time with us. As SWACO's Amy Densborn noted, the Franklin County Sanitary Landfill receives over 1 million tons of refuse annually. In 2020, the city of Columbus disposed over 352,000 tons in the landfill at a cost exceeding $18,200,000. From Amy's presentation, you should have a greater appreciation of the complexities of a sanitary landfill. It is so much more than just a big hole in the ground where we throw our garbage. It has clay and plastic linings, gravel and sand filtering systems, leachate and methane gas capturing systems, and more. We're fortunate to have a sanitary landfill this close to the city of Columbus because the further we must transport our refuse for disposal, the more it will cost us. So what can you do as a resident to help extend the life of our landfill and keep our disposal costs as low as possible? Reduce, reuse, and recycle. Reduction is the first step. Be aware of product packaging that you purchase. Is the packaging something that you can reuse or recycle? If you can't reuse or recycle the product's packaging, then consider not purchasing the product and let the proprietor know your decision. Now, you aren't throwing away grass clippings, are you? Raise the bed of your mower and increase the frequency of your cutting so that you are cutting off no more than 25% of the blade of grass. This will not lead to thatch buildup. Are you throwing away food? Reduce the amount of food you prepare for your meals. Reusing is the second step. If you insist on bagging your grass clippings and you don't like to eat leftovers, have you thought about composting? If you can't use those plastic bags from the store, maybe a neighbor can. Get creative. Search YouTube for clever ideas to reuse many items. Recycling is the third step. The City of Columbus affords residents in single-family dwellings weekly collection of a 96-gallon refuse container and every other week collection of a 64-gallon recycling container. So every 2 weeks, residents are provided a total capacity of 256 gallons for refuse and recycling disposal. The recycling capacity amounts to 25% of the total. Our residential recycling program. Our residential recycling program began with the distribution of over 200,000 recycling containers in 2012 and 2013. 2014 was the first full year of the program. For the years 2014 through 2020, the average number of households that were eligible to participate in the program was 228,029. The average number of households wanting a recycling container was 202,119. Thus, 88.64% of the eligible residents said they wanted to recycle. For a 2-week period every quarter, Rumpke conducts recycling participation studies where Rumpke calculates the percentage of containers placed out for collection against the total number of participating households. This participation percentage for 2014 through 2020 averaged 75.58%. Now, for that same 7-year period, if we compared the average number of households placing a container out for collection against the average number of eligible households, the set-out rate was 66.99%. During the program's life, we have had suggestions from our residents to provide weekly recycling or to issue residents a second recycling container. As recycling programs go, ours is really in its beginning stages. Compared to other cities, we are novices. With that in consideration, we need to ensure that our current recycling program has reached its full potential before we make major changes. Let's look at our first graphic. Thank you. Residential recycling results. From the households participating in the residential recycling program, this slide shows the refuse tonnage and recycling tonnage collected in years 2014 through 2020. The total recycling collected was 228,347 tons, resulting in landfill disposal savings of $12,304,090. During this time, our average recycling rate was 14.21%. Please note that the recycling rate is calculated by dividing the recycling tonnage by the combined refuse and recycling tonnages. For example, if refuse collected tonnage was 80 tons and recycling collected tonnage was 20 tons, we would have a total waste stream of 100 tons. Our 20 tons of recycling would amount to 20% of the total waste stream. If you are one of the residents that feel you don't have sufficient recycling capacity, I have some suggestions on how you can maximize your recycling container. First, don't place the fiber you recycle, the paper and the cardboard, in the container until last. A typical grocery store bag will hold 2 weeks of local paper and still have room enough for magazines and junk mail. You must break down cardboard boxes. During the next 2 weeks, throw your bottles, jugs, tubs, jars, and cans into the container. Smash the cartons and the plastic milk bottles. These items will nestle together and eliminate most of the voids in your container. Give your container a little shake now and again. Now, before you place your container out for collection, empty the grocery store bag you had been saving your paper in. And lastly, lay the flattened cardboard boxes on top. Your container should not be overloaded. The lid of your container should close flat. If you would like to see a lighthearted video on maximizing your recycling container, please go to www.columbusgreenspot.org. If you feel you need additional recycling capacity, you may purchase a second container. Let's look at our next graphic, please. This is our order form for residents to purchase an additional refuse or recycling container. Someone can get this form by going online at columbus.gov to access the City of Columbus webpage. Once there, use the Quick Links feature and then select Garbage and Recycling, and you will be on the Division of Refuse collection page. Besides locating the container purchase form on the page, you will have access to the Waste Wizard. The Waste Wizard allows you to search for how to recycle or dispose many items. The cost of a recycling container is $45 plus sales tax of 7.5% for a total of $48.38. We must charge sales tax because, unlike the city-issued containers that remain the property of the City of Columbus, this container is your property. If you move, this is your container. Take it with you. Let's look at the next graphic, please. Contamination. Let's take a few moments and talk about recycling contamination. Periodically, Rumpke will conduct a waste stream audit to determine the quantity of the different items coming into their recycling center. With the last audit, the following percentages were determined to be fiber, paper and cardboard, making up 61% of the weight, glass was 16.4%, plastic was 6.4%, ferrous material, tin, steel cans was 1.7%, aluminum was 1%, aseptic containers 0.5%, and our contamination was 13% of the weight. As single-stream recycling goes, Rumpke reports that 13% isn't all that bad. However, the contamination remains a processing cost for Rumpke and a risk that their final product could be rejected by markets purchasing our recycling materials. These are costs that Rumpke or any other company in this business must pass on to us through higher bidding. In other words, we have a direct interest in eliminating recycling contamination. If you do not know if an item is to be recycled, you may refer to Rumpke's webpage at rumpke.com, SWACO's webpage at swaco.org, or go to the Waste Wizard on the City of Columbus webpage at columbus.gov. If you are still unable to determine whether or not to recycle the item, then please throw it away in your green refuse container. Please follow the rule. If in doubt, throw it out. While it is unfortunate that some recycling material might go to the landfill, all that is lost is a small amount of landfill space and a minor amount of disposal cost. However, inappropriate material going to a recycling center could result in damage to the highly sophisticated sorting equipment or an entire bale of recycling material being rejected. Let's talk about drop-off recycling. SWACO operates drop-off recycling program to serve Franklin County residents. There are times during the year, such as holidays or events in our lives, such as graduation parties, that overwhelm your recycling container. You may take your excess recyclables to one of the many drop-off locations. Go to swaco.org to locate the drop-off facility closest to you. The drop-off recycling program is an example of a landfill diversion program designed to reduce the tonnage being landfilled. Diversion programs are funded through a $5 per ton charge that is part of the landfill tipping fee. Multifamily complex recycling. Multifamily complexes, apartments, and condominium complexes are defined by most cities as being part of a commercial waste stream. Columbus is unusual in defining these dwelling units as being part of the residential waste stream. At the close of 2020, almost 35% of the residences serviced by the Division of Refuse Collection were in multifamily complexes. When it comes to recycling, multifamily complexes present difficult challenges. Most of the complexes were constructed without recycling in mind. There's simply very little room for individual 64-gallon recycling containers, very little room for recycling dumpsters, and very little room for a recycling compactor. In 2021, Columbus, SWACO, and the Recycling Partnership will conduct a recycling pilot program in a select number of multifamily complexes. Our concentration will be in complexes with compactor refuse collection service. A determining reason for this approach is that each individual compactor's refuse is weighed when dumped. This will result in getting us very accurate diversion measurements. From this knowledge, we will be better prepared to expand recycling into multifamily complexes. That concludes my presentation, and I understand that we will have time for some questions. Thank you.
Great, thanks, TJ. Go ahead and stop sharing the screen here, and we will get to some questions. All right. I guess one question is, and I think you all might have addressed this, but if somebody has questions about what is recyclable, what were the two websites that they can go to find out? And Amy, let me go ahead and unmute you as well. And Amy or TJ, I'll open it up to you all, whichever you all want to take.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. You can check out recyclerate.org. That is our search tool and our educational campaign that talks a little bit more about the do's and don'ts for recycling, a little bit more about the environmental impacts and the economic impacts too when we recycle. There's a quiz on there, and then there's also our search tool for you to find locations to recycle hard to recycle materials. So if you're looking to divert an appliance, an electronic, batteries, that would be a great resource for you. And then TJ, what do you recommend?
Well, I think the driving force on this is Rumpke. They're the ones that, as you mentioned earlier, determine what we get to recycle. So I invite you to go to rumpke.com. We have our Waste Wizard, and of course, Amy just told you about SWACO. All three are good sources. We try very hard to keep all the information in sync. Sometimes we get out of sync a little bit, and it's not too long before we have a customer letting us know that we're not all saying the exact same thing, and we try to get all realigned once again. But I think if you find one of those sources, you're going to get good information.
Great. Another question is, and maybe I could walk through this. Somebody's wanting to know, how do they find that form again, TJ, to order another recycling container? And what I'll do is, you can walk me through it. I'm going to share my screen again. So are you able to see it?
Yeah. Well,
okay. So
in the bar there, quick links is the clicking on quick links, and then in the column on the left, 3 up from the bottom, garbage and recycling.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, there you see Waste Wizard popping up there at the top. That's what I was talking about. That's where you can plug in an item that you want to know how to dispose of and hit the search, and hopefully you'll get wisdom that pops up. Scroll on down. Right. Well, let's see. Well, on the Recycle Columbus, the blue containers, you can click on Recycle Columbus, and that'll expand going down. And you're going to get those containers again right there. Order a second recycling cart. Click here on the left-hand side in the middle. There you go. And hopefully get the form.
Oh, yeah, it looks like it downloaded, so my computer's just slow. There it is.
That's kind of the rules and regulations. That's the first page. They say keep that page. That tells you, basically about your purchase. These come with a 5-year warranty from the date of issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then the form is actually on the second page, but you can print that off and fill it out, mail it into us with your check or money order, and we'll process a container for you.
Awesome. Thank you. And since I'm on here, I'm going to go to GreenSpot, columbusgreenspot.org, and show you for that video. You would go over here under quick links. See, if the city were big about the quick links, so you don't have to dig too far down to find something. But GreenSpot videos, you click on that, you scroll down, and it's actually the first one right there, how to fit recyclables into the recycling container. So I'm not gonna play it, but you can see it's only about 2 minutes and 24 seconds long, so it's fairly short. And you could see that video. Great. Are there any other questions? Go ahead and write them in the chat. I don't see any more questions, but we'll give it a minute. While people are typing, I will say that our next GreenSpot Conversation 2021 webinar is on Monday, and it's going to be a conversation with the Grange Insurance Audubon Center. So check that out on our Facebook page. Seeing no other questions in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I do want to thank everybody for taking the time out of their day here on, Wednesday? For the days kind of blend together sometimes. I want to say a special thank you to Amy and to TJ for being here and putting up with my technical difficulties when we were putting this together and doing dry runs and stuff. So I appreciate their time and their efforts. And if anybody has any questions, you could always email greenspot@columbus.gov for any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.
Thank you, Dave.